Hi, everyone. Welcome to our webinar today, Leading an Efficient SDR Team. We're super excited to have you all here. Just to kick things off, would love you to share in the sales chat what has been one of your latest sales hacks. We do have a lot of people joining us here today already. Thank you so much, all the 680 people of you who have joined, taken the time to join our webinar today. We're really honored to have you all here. So welcome to our Leading an Efficient SDR team and how to do more with less webinar. For those of you who do not know Apollo, we are an end-to-end sales engine for B2B professionals, helping you move forward with less effort. And we provide access to the world's largest, most accurate B2B database, along with tools to help you engage with contacts and automate your entire workflow from all in one centralized platform. And we have over 1 million users at 17,000 companies, including some of the companies that you see listed here. And then now to your speakers and SDR leaders. I did not intro myself properly. I'm Zir Dang, and I'm Senior Product Marketing Manager here at Apollo. And I'm going to hand it over to our expert speakers today to give a quick intro. So in your intros, I would love for you to also share how big of a team that you lead and what the best and worst part is of being an SDR leader. And we can go from left to right here. I'll hand it over to you, Rashmi.
All right. Hi, everybody. My name is Rashmi. I'm super thrilled to be here. I'm very, very passionate about this early pipeline generation part of the sales cycle. And there's nothing more fun than jamming out with a couple of really smart leaders like Cynthia and Matthew and engaging with all of you from all over the world. So yeah, I lead the SDR, the pipe gen effort here. Our sales team is about 30 people large, with a small but really effective team of about 5 SDRs who are doing a lot. And yeah, super excited to share some of the things that we're doing internally on this chat. And yeah, thanks very much.
Thanks, Rashmi. And Cynthia.
Hi, everyone. My name is Cynthia Handel. I am the head of global sales for Samara. I lead a team of 16 BDRs, 2 team leads, a RevOps manager, and a QA analyst, also a sales trainee manager. So also wanted to let you guys know that I'm very passionate about training future leaders in the BDR industry. I've always worked in sales development. I love sales development, and I'm really excited to be here today and share best practices and get to know all of you.
Awesome. Thanks, Cynthia. And then we have Matthew.
Hello, Matthew Roberts here. I'm heading up the sales development team over at Mosaic, previously over at Chili Piper. Right now, the team, similar to what Rashmi said, small but mighty. There's 6 BDRs and 1 ISC, which is essentially like an inbound rep. Really also excited to be here and chatting with everybody, going over best practices. Definitely a passion of mine. As far as like one of my favorite things about sales development is the fact that you are able to work with a lot of people who are newer or maybe junior in the tech sales space, and you get to really see them blossom and grow their careers. So really excited to have this conversation today. Thank you.
Awesome. So we have a great panel of expert and SDR leaders here to chat today, and we're going to have an engaging conversation and a lot of good strategies and tactics that we're going to talk through. So I wanted to kick off with one of our first question here, which is, if and how have you adjusted your team's goals due to the current economic environment we are in today, whether that's in resource headcounts or actual budget cuts, and how have that affected sort of your team's goals? Matt, would you like to kick that off?
Yeah, absolutely. Happy to. So we actually haven't adjusted any sort of goals or quotas or anything like that for the team. We are staying lean, so we do have similar goals, but we're not adding headcount or anything like that. As far as why, we've been very fortunate to continue to see very strong numbers as far as like bookings and opportunities on the outbound side, as well as now being able to use. It's a very new team. We started back in October of 2021, so using data from the previous year to have a better focus on which accounts we should be targeting, and therefore driving like higher ACV. So goals staying the same, small but mighty. So I'll stick with that.
Cool. And we'll definitely deep dive a little bit more on that piece on how you're using data to look at sort of the shifts in target audience from before to now. But Rashmi, how would you say that our SDR team here at Apollo have changed goals or not changed goals due to the current economic environment?
Yeah, on the SDR team side, our goals haven't shifted because of the current environment necessarily, but what we are seeing is a lot more cross-functional collaboration in our new motion, which is the account-based sales motion. And so we are seeing support from our product, from our marketing team, from ops teams, from everyone else also jumping in to bring our customers down that journey and support that conversion rate through our stages, and looking extremely closely at fields, stages, actions in each stage of our customer journey, and helping put our SDRs in front of our customers with full context during those stages in the journey. And that's going to be the big focus for us right now.
Cool. And yes, and let's also deep dive more into sort of how we are figuring out that ABM motions and what are some specific tactics that you're doing there here next. But
definitely.
Yes. And Cynthia, how have your team sort of adjusted the goals?
So Samara has been in a hyper growth mode. We grew so much in Q4 of last year, and Q1 has been just the start of January was crazy for us. We stopped hiring internally for BDRs last year in December. And we're focusing more in bringing leads, just as Rashmi said, across stages. We're more focusing on having qualified conversations, more about multi-threading, more about getting to know your ICP. Not specifically, I would say that on the second 6 months of 2022, we were more focused on quantity of meetings versus quality. And right now we're more focused on the quality and conversion rate of those meetings. So we're actually focusing more on storytelling. Like, for example, what Samara does is that we help Latin American talent find jobs with US companies. We actually act as their employer of record, and we're a vetting and verification platform. So more into storytelling, that when we send out those emails to current customers or prospective customers, we're replacing candidates in front of them. It's telling the story of the candidate. This specific candidate has had X wins, is an extroverted business development manager, has worked in Fortune 500 companies. So more focusing on a hyper-personalized approach. That's what we have been doing.
Cool. And let's actually already deep dive into, all of the things that you guys mentioned in terms of like how you've adjusted your goals, and then segue into like how are you focusing in the next 6 to 12 months to really drive your pipeline towards the goals that that you guys have. And so Cynthia, you mentioned like focusing more on quality and on conversions, and doing that sort of by multi-threading, identifying the core ICPs and so on. Like, would you be able to deep dive there a little bit more on how you're doing that in terms of like multi-threading, core ICP to drive that more quality and conversion?
Yes, definitely. So we're doing more research across accounts. And I just saw that somebody asked me if our goals and metrics changed. So our metrics didn't really change, but our goals did. Just so that you guys know, what we do at Samara is that we focus more on SMART goals versus like having the same goal every month or a comparison versus the past year. You know, everything going on, layoffs, recession, especially since we're in the staffing and staff augmentation industry. It's getting harder and harder to reach out to people, especially when, you know, you're calling one person, next week that person was laid off. So more about SMART goals, I would say. And let's say somebody had a goal of 10 meetings per month, but they actually brought in 5 or 6 or 7 qualified opportunities that actually more than 80% of them were actually converted. That counts for me as reaching your goal. So we're actually evaluating month to month, and we're working with what we have. That's the whole purpose of the webinar, working more with less, especially with ever-changing times. Also, something that we started doing that has really worked when we're talking about multi-threading is that we reach out to C-level exclusively, CEOs, CTOs, COOs, CROs, CMOs. We were previously only reaching out to CEOs and co-founders. We recently started out reaching out to CTOs and CFOs and changing the messaging. You know, what matters to a CEO isn't the same thing that matters to a CFO, and what necessarily doesn't matter to a CRO and CMO. So we're changing the message via email, LinkedIn, and cold call whenever we call out each decision maker, and honing the message to whatever we think would be more relevant to them. And that's a more hyper-personalized approach. Also, one of our cadences, just so that everybody knows that really worked out for us, was personalized videos via email. It took more time to actually do them, but we would pick out 25 prospects top of the funnel, send out 25 personalized videos. And then if we didn't get a call back or an answer or a reply from that email, we would send out a GIF with humor. And we actually booked a lot of meetings through that. So it's all about a very hyper-personalized approach.
That's awesome. Thank you. Cool. And then jumping over to you, Matt, you briefly mentioned sort of like when adjusting to the goals related to this economic environment, you also looked at a lot into the core audience and how that has sort of shifted. Would love for you to share more there and your findings and how you are going to go after this, the strategies you're going to put into place to sort of go after the new shift in the audience that you've seen.
Yeah, definitely. So as I mentioned, you know, this is a pretty recent outbound motion, and so we started back in October. You know, we had a good 6-7 months of pre-economic downturn to gather some data, and we're really excited to look at that. Then the climate has completely changed as of, you know, like May-ish on. So what we wanted to do as far as like focus is go back and look at like our tiering or our audience. Who are we reaching out to? And again, take that data from the last 6 months, which is more relevant. You know, people who bought in December a few months back are much more our target audience now than who bought in February of last year. So looking into, you know, who's actually booking these meetings in the last 6 months, whether it's the title, it's the type of company, et cetera. And then more importantly, looking at who's actually being closed from those opportunities. And then from there, being able to focus a little bit more tighter as far as like making it more efficient. So putting our calories and using, you know, our resources in the right spot rather than going a little bit more wide like we did to sort of learn. And then, you know, given the current climate now, focusing down on just what's really been converting in the last 4-ish months. So outside of that, also, I think, you know, ABM strategy as well. So there's a lot more cross collaboration with marketing in this time, making sure that we're all focused on the same goal and again, rowing in the right direction. So having an ABM strategy, we've seen some good success so far. Cynthia, to her point, like gifting has worked out really well. I've done gifting in the past as a, you know, thank you after a meeting or something, but gifting before the meeting has seen a lot of success on these like hyper focused accounts, as well as co-working accounts with our AE team too. So BDRs are teaming up and having, you know, a few select good fit logos that they're going to co-work as well, and we've seen some success there too. So as far as just efficiency all around the board, tightening our focus on who we're prospecting to, and then which we'll probably get into a little bit later, just making sure that like quarter over quarter we're seeing more efficient work output as far as what's coming back from book meetings and opportunities created.
Awesome. And then on that, I guess on a similar trend in terms of ABM motions and working more cross-functionally, Rashmi, that was also something you mentioned that will be the biggest focus, right, in the next 6 to 12 months here at Apollo. What are some, what are we tactically doing there to sort of drive more pipeline?
Yeah. So the big context around all this is that being a platform for SDRs and salespeople that we're also seeing that in our market, SDRs and salespeople are like us being asked to do a lot more with less resources. So Apollo's journey so far has been like a rise of users who want to find contacts that fit their ICP, and so that they can action on them really quickly. So our ABM motion is anchored in the fact that our user base is able to come onto Apollo and find their contacts and start messaging them and reaching out to them quickly. So our ABM tactics are revolving around identifying those users when they come onto our platform, identifying their colleagues when they're joining the initial users who come onto Apollo, and then after that, identifying why they came onto Apollo. Why are they successful? What pain were they looking to solve? Understanding that. And in all of these initial stages of the account's journey or the prospect's journey, we have the product team, the growth team, the SDR team, the marketing team, all looking at the various metrics that influence this early part of the cycle. And then basically, we are using the SDR team and Apollo's automations to identify the signals that tell us, what are the factors here? Is somebody able to book more meetings? Is somebody able to find out when they're when they're seeing more mobile numbers, and helping our SDRs get in front of decision makers faster. One of the challenges in this journey has been not just like finding contacts, but really identifying who a decision maker is. And the core focus of the SDR, systems function right now is to use Apollo to get our SDRs in front of the decision makers as quickly as they can. And that means understanding not just the standard titles of the VP of X org, but also to understand the custom titles who execute on the org level objectives, and to be able to get their phone number and reach out to them on time and run a thorough follow-up cycle. So there's a lot of work that's being asked of our SDRs that is deeply. So we're looking to our cross-channel, our cross-department partners, as well as our systems, to do a lot of work to remove the burden on our SDRs on the data input and the manual actions they need to do, so that their focus remains 100% on the human interaction and the empathy and the alignment with what our customers need and how we can get them there really quickly.
Cool. I think that's a great segue actually to my next question, which is around what are some of the ways that your teams are currently looking to streamline processes and workflows to sort of maximize your SDR team's efficiency, which Rashmi, you were talking there, that's been a core piece to sort of remove the manual task and actions that SDR teams has to do. Like what are some specific ways that you're doing there to streamline your team's processes and workflows?
Yeah, I mean, Apollo is a product-led company. So we place enormous focus on our users, and we wanna make them successful and understand what are the needs that are driving success. So in terms of removing as much manual tasks as possible, there's three things that are really helpful to us. One is in Apollo, we have centralized personas prepared, and that kind of helps us filter down to exact titles, including exclusions of titles that that our SDRs might run into, but we know that they're not decision makers. So really hyper focusing on the ideal customer profile and preparing centralized personas within Apollo. It also ensures that all the SDRs are consistently meeting that high standard of searching for the right contact and not spending time clicking filters trying to get there. And the second piece of it is on sequences being very targeted to specific segments. And those segments are around clusters of customers who face the same types of pain points or who have similar industries and markets, so that we can speak to challenges much more closely and in a much more personalized way. And it also helps us develop messaging that is very specific to those segments. And the third piece is not leaving it upon the SDRs to do the manual addition of contacts into sequences and moving data from one system to another, because there's a lot of like high velocity information being captured when an SDR is on a phone call. They're capturing all this live information when they're talking to a customer, and we want them to be focused on really absorbing all of that and actioning on that. So we use Apollo to do all the work of like adding people to sequences, to automate some of the follow-ups after you've had a good call and you've named a disposition, like either they've handled an objection or there's a follow-up required. And we use Apollo to orchestrate some of the follow-up actions that need to happen and the next steps and for the personalization that needs to happen in the system, so that our SDRs, our AEs also who do pipeline building for themselves, they can focus on customers and really being present and aware and contextualized in their customer interaction.
Awesome. I see both Matt and Cynthia nodding here, agreeing with many of the points. Matt, what would you say are some of the ways that you're helping your team streamline processes and workflows?
Yeah, I like that Rashmi talked a lot about like automation, because I think that is a really big one. Also, just looking at like our current tech stack in our workflow and like trying to see if there is any sort of thing that can either be eliminated or somewhere where we're not actually as optimized as we should be with that tool. So we actually just did a recent training last Friday on looking at each day from like an efficiency first standpoint and saying like, where's the lowest hanging fruit? Where should we start from like our current prospects or accounts that are in sequence, and then working all the way back to like the very end of the day, which is like prospecting for new ones to throw in, with the whole goal of like, where can we like eliminate very manual steps and where can we add one of our tools or our current tech stack to automate some of these processes and just make it more efficient use of time. So to Roshni's point, like, I don't want the team having to worry about any sort of like manual efforts that could be automated through some sort of tool or just a current like workflow. And I want them to be more focused on like every single day, if I'm starting, at the very beginning, where is that lowest hanging fruit for me to book like a qualified meeting, and then kind of work backwards from there. And so from our whole entire workflow, our entire process, also, I didn't really mention it at the beginning, but we sell into finance. So we're a strategic finance platform. So a lot of CFOs, VPs of finance, et cetera. But to that point, our persona is very seasonal as far as like what they do. Their end of the year is very different than their beginning of the year. The end of the month, beginning of the month is also very different. So also making sure that our messaging from sequences and templates and one-offs are all very specific to what that persona is dealing with at that current time. So very, very relevant messaging depending on the time, prioritizing the process and the workflow to make sure that they're doing the best work early on and then working backwards from there, as well as just absolutely taking into consideration our tech stack and trying to eliminate stuff that's not useful. I always say, like, if you're doing a step, whether it's in the sequencing tool or outside of it, and you don't truly feel like this is valuable to leading you to book a meeting, then like we should eliminate that step, because I don't want anyone doing something that they don't feel is worthwhile and they don't do with the idea of like, cool, this is going to help me book a meeting.
Cool. That makes total sense. And then Cynthia, over to you. How are some of the ways that you are currently working with your team to streamline workflows and processes?
So first of all, we're taking a maximum advantage of the current tech stack that we have because like I said, we stopped hiring last year in Q4. And I think we're also doing a churn probably in the next 2 weeks to evaluate every single tool that we have in our tech stack. And it's funny because I just saw that somebody asked if we were prospecting through LinkedIn using Apollo. And yes, that's exactly how we prospect. We sense our decision makers are mostly on LinkedIn and on job boards. We look them up on LinkedIn and pull the numbers and emails from Apollo directly and LinkedIn. That's how we do it. Then our Apollo is also linked to our HubSpot account. So we're able to push numbers directly once you click on that contact and you click on the mobile number and you click on the email, it automatically exports itself to Apollo, to HubSpot, and the lead is created along with the number and email. So no need to do it manually. Like that's the advantage of having all of your tech stack integrated. And then we are doing some email cadences through Apollo. We're also doing a couple through Mailshake. And again, everything is integrated together through HubSpot. So whenever a prospect says interested through a Mailshake campaign, it automatically creates a deal in HubSpot. So we're taking advantage of having the entire team using every single tool that's linked to HubSpot. So we don't have to go back and forth between tools, and that saves us time. Also, we've invested a lot of training and time management, how to prioritize your day, how to block your day into like the famous golden hours. Like there's specific times that you have to do for cold calling or block certain parts of the day for that. Also, like whenever you're going to do your HubSpot updating or whenever you're going to do cold emailing or whenever you're going to do those campaigns, block out all of the distractions. Because especially, I'm going back to the recession thing, my ICP changes every week because like I said, companies are changing every day. Somebody's a CEO one day, the next day they might be let go. So we need to be constantly changing the messaging, and that's why it's important to have everything automated. So when that you change the messaging, everything is built in together. That's what we're currently doing.
Cool. And that actually segues very well to my next questions, which is, I guess a bit related to like how you guys are looking to streamline processes, but like, is there any in the tools that you use or that you're leveraging sort of automation and intelligence and AI in the tools? And specifically, Cynthia, that you mentioned about messaging. I mean, there's this huge trend, obviously, with GPT, and is that something you're currently using in sort of in your messaging? And generally, like, how just do you, how do you A/B test your messaging and making sure that that successfully lands with your prospect?
So I would say that we're changing the messaging every month according to what is going on with the world. We do have two tools that we use for A/B testing email campaigns. And what we're doing for our reps is that we create around 10 to 15 new warm tested email templates as a first email. Then we let them create their own cadences via the second step is either a call, a LinkedIn Connect, a GIF, or humor, a video, whatever. But the first touch is done by us through an A/B testing campaign. Then something that we've benchmarked a lot that works is, for example, we have had 2 BDRs that have had excellent open rates. Actually, one had a 90% open rate in her emails like a month and a half ago. So we had all of the BDRs duplicate that campaign and just personalizes and change the step that had the personalized video. So hi, Pamela, if you're listening, shout out goes out to you. So we had other reps replicate that same sequence in order to A/B test it. Some were extremely successful, some not, but that's what we're doing with emails. Yeah.
Yeah, 90% open. That's amazing. And that the core piece to that was sort of video personalized videos you mentioned.
The video was the second or third step, but actually it took us like 6 months of learning that emails have to be kept short and simple. Less is more when it comes to cold outreach. Like if you send out, I remember like 10 years ago when I first started cold emailing, I would send out 10 paragraphs and I thought that adding 1,000 attachments and the more information you would put, but no, less is more. And it's all about having a call to action and just, pinging that little interest to the prospect so that you can actually book the meeting or create some sort of interest to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, cool. And I guess same questions to you, Matt. I know messaging is also definitely a core piece to sort of focusing on the results there for driving pipeline. So what are you using any automation or intelligence tools there, and how are you testing your messagings to make sure that it successfully lands?
Yeah, so we actually sort of revamped a little bit of our process as well as far as taking on like inbound, content leads on the outbound side, so we can see some of the more intent. So whether we're seeing people who are on our website through Qualified, which is a great tool to engage with people, but also to see sort of exactly what they're working with in real time. They might be on a blog, they might be, looking at competitors page or something. So using that intent data to follow up, and to your point on messaging, like making everything very hyper personalized based on the relevance that you can deal with or whatever context of that individual that you have. Also, like, using Apollo for mobile numbers is very important for us. Again, a lot of our old data was like phone trees and things like that. And we're trying to connect with CFOs and CEOs. That's not really how you're going to get them. So using these tools to make sure that one, we're getting to the right person, but also that we're landing with the correct messaging at the right time. Outside of that, a lot of our sort of like intelligence tools do come through some manual searches, obviously in LinkedIn. I know you mentioned Mailshake, but Jed released a really cool LinkedIn filters search that we now have everyone doing, so you can see every job change on accounts that you're working. A user gem style search where you have old CFOs that have left customers of Mosaic and now they're at a new company. So again, just kind of working from that low-hanging fruit mentality of going after stuff that we know converts at a higher level, which is always going to be people who have intent or people who know who Mosaic is. So it's a little bit more warm than fully cold.
Yep. Cool. And then Rashmi, how would you say Apollo is currently sort of leveraging intelligence and automation in the tools or in the process?
Yeah. So I think, automation is layered in so many places in our strategy in Apollo. Like, I think we have that philosophy of trying to automate anything that doesn't require a human, a human being's empathy and intelligence, and for the humans to be focused on absolutely the things that they can be most impactful on. So on that front, there's like two scenarios that are kind of driving how we automate things, right? Like, one is the internal scenario, which is that the targets are there. Conversions have never been more important. Like, we want to make sure that when we launch a strategy, we track conversions closely, we understand why they're happening, and it's something we're able to repeat and scale in various ways. And the third part is that the follow-ups and the time taken and the effort that's being placed on our SDR is as minimized as possible so they can be more effective. And from the external side, we're seeing that the needs from automation are coming from the fact that our customers' needs are shifting rapidly, and we need to keep up with that and stay alert to it and change our tactics, like Cynthia mentioned, and be very, very responsive and sensitive to what's happening and move and align. And then secondly, a lot of top-down exec level initiatives are coming down from in our customers that we are hearing about amongst our customers itself. So on the automation front, what that means is all our messaging that exists right now, we want to be A/B testing them constantly and like optimizing and understanding what's working. Something that was working in December may not work in January. So what is the new thing that we test out? Maintaining that high standard to understand what's a good template, what is not. Like, our standards right now, like we want to see an open rate of like 35% or above. Otherwise, it's switched off automatically. We have alerts set up to let us know that something isn't working, so that we're not funneling more contacts into something we know doesn't work. And then the last piece of it is automation to ensure that our contacts that our SDRs are calling are fully enriched with like mobile numbers. Apollo has a huge mobile number database, like Matt was mentioning. We have about 110 million mobile numbers. That's something we want to make sure is baked into the SDR's process, so that when they cold call customers, when they're doing those call blocks, when they're reaching out to customers on the phone, their tasks are filtered onto the contacts that have mobile numbers available, and that means that the connect rate that they see on the phone numbers is higher. And when you're also connecting more, we as trainers and coaches of SDRs are able to spend more time worrying less about are they able to connect with the decision makers, and we're able to focus more on training the SDRs on how to convert those connects into good conversations, how to convert those conversations into follow-ups, how to like run those follow-ups thoroughly along with automation to make sure your meeting gets attended and the qualification criteria is being met, so that you're in front of the right decision maker. So all of these need to orchestrate correctly, and each time you layer manual tasks into this, it is a killer. So we're using Apollo to make sure we remove all of that friction as much as we can. And I want to come back to this quick question you asked about ChatGPT, because it is amazing the pace at which technology just leaps forward, and how people love to adapt it. I saw this really creative use by an SDR earlier that I just loved, because the SDRs are also, even when they're personalizing, there's a lot of information crunching in a very tiny amount of time that they need to do. So I saw this great example of an SDR who mentioned how he pulls the LinkedIn profile summary from LinkedIn and uses ChatGPT to create a quick personalization for a first sentence, so that it sounds pithy and exciting, and also like sometimes to interact with ChatGPT to identify some of the pain points of their customers, and specifically for their customer job titles, and identify some of the symptoms of it, so that they can use some of those ideas when they craft those personal emails. I mean, I don't know if ChatGPT can become an SDR, but it can definitely help an SDR do things faster.
Yeah, one day when ChatGPT can do cold calls, that would be amazing.
Then the robot everybody.
I know we only have actually a minute. I would love to. So it might go past just a few minutes, because I know you guys have just shared so many great insights here. And I'm gonna maybe throw you a little ball, but I wanted to close this to ask one last question around, like, what would your number one tip be for our audience today to sort of test out when it comes to doing more with less? What would be your number one tip there? And anyone can go. I did not prep you on this, so.
I would say that it's always very important to be prepared, especially when you have to do like more with less. And with a recession going on, you always have to have a plan. I'm a very structured and organized leader, so I'm always thinking one step ahead. As a leader, that's something that you have to do, be prepared. So when things happen, you're not like, in a fire extinguishing mode, that you're killing fires every time that you have something. And my advice to all BDRs, and again, I'm not being paid by Apollo to say this, prospecting is the most important part of your job. If you learn to prospect correctly, and if you invest, I would say, more than 50% of your time on prospecting, you will get there, and you probably will book more meetings, because being a BDR is a lot different than being AE and being in any other role. You can walk more on the dangerous side. You can ask questions. You can say some things that AEs wouldn't normally be permitted to say, especially because you're not expected to know the product. So it's all about being curious, asking questions. And one of the best sales books that I read, which is actually Fanatical Prospecting, I tell everybody that I love it, is the more you prospect, the luckier you get. So
Awesome.
That would be what I would say.
Yes, thank you, Cynthia.
I would say I totally agree with the prospecting thing. I think it's very valuable no matter what you go into next, whether it's an AE, marketing, start your own company. So I do like that. The big one I would mention is to just double down on any sort of like coaching or training that you can get during these times. Also kind of tying into that, like make sure that you're consistently like A/B testing, because as Cynthia mentioned, like things change month to month or week to week right now. So make sure that you're just very on top of things from a data perspective, and you know that you're doing, your best work. Or if something isn't adding up to the way you want it to, make sure that you're pivoting and trying new stuff. But the big one there is whether it's networking or it's just, hopping on webinars like this or reading new ebooks, is just stay on top of it from an educational standpoint. And not all coaching and training is going to come internal, so people should know that as well. From networking, from again, meeting people outside of your own org, which is also great because you get to see new ideas and new thoughts as well, that maybe you're in kind of this, own silo when you're in your own org. So make sure that you're continuing to stay educated and trying things out.
Thank you, Matt. Rashmi?
Yeah, I would say that there's going to be a million things to do when you're an SDR, and it can feel really overwhelming. It feels like a lot. And so it's really important for the SDR, for you yourself, like not just to listen to your manager and just follow that like blindly, but understand like how to prioritize your time, how to prioritize your focus so that you have a P0, P2, P1, P2, and focus on, make sure that you do those P0 things really well and deeply. And then your effort on the P1, P2 will arrange itself accordingly. So that'll help you really kind of align your efforts to the things that are most impactful to your organization, to your team, and to yourself. And then those P0 priorities, ideally, because you're in an SDR world, you're the front line of the company that really hears the customer's needs more than anybody. You hear it live. You know better than anyone what your customers are saying now. So align those as much as possible to making sure that you're close to what your customers need. And like Cynthia says, like she put it so well, be curious, ask questions, like really absorb, be a sponge to absorb and digest all of this information that you're hearing. And I think one tip that I'll sort of share that I think was enormously helpful for many reps that I've seen is there's this great course. I think it's not even that expensive, but it's useful. It's extremely useful. It's called Tongue Tied for Objection Handling by Josh Braun, which kind of like categorizes some of the normal objections that you face as an SDR and sort of coaches your mindset on how to tackle that. So whether you're doing it over email, whether you're doing it over the phone, you have categories that objections that naturally come up when you are doing sales. And I recommend that you kind of like think through those objection categories and be ready, and then focus all your time in the right priority order for yourself, and you will do great.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. I know we've run through, but I'm just going to take 1-2 minutes to conclude with a couple of slides. Those were all, I think the panel just been great, and thanks all of you, Cynthia, Rashmi, Matthew, for sharing all of your great insights. I think hopefully for the audience here, you've had some good takeaways from this to sort of directly implement in your day-to-day. And yes, feel free, Matthew, Cynthia, Rashmi, if you do have to jump. I know I ran over, so please feel free to do that. And I'm just going to take a few minutes with the audience that we have here to just run through a couple of last slides. We did this sort of. So if you're new to Apollo, you can always start an always free account today and try Apollo and see if we are the platform for you. And if you're already on Apollo, please check out our different plans and see where there's opportunity for you to do more automation and intelligence and help us, we can be the platform for you to sort of help you make your process and workflows for your team more efficient and unlock those. And And I will be sending out the recording after this, as well as a quick survey to get your feedback on the webinar. And hopefully it's been of value for you. Thank you so much again for all of you who have attended today. We appreciate all the time you join us here, and I hope you had some good takeaways. And thank you to our speakers, Matt, Rashmi, and Cynthia. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you for having me.
And have a good last day of the month.
Thank you for having us. Have an awesome day. Bye.
Bye.